Okay, so this particular session, first of all, thanks for joining this lightning session on agentic AI governance. And while we are saying it, shaping a responsible future, definitely I understand this very well, and you all also understand that over the period of time, in next maybe couple of years, you will see most of your work will be done through AI, which is already been done, maybe in some parts or in some ways, maybe automations. And if we think about the evolution of AI, of course, rule-based AI to Gen AI, and now we are talking about agentic AI. So the first thing which I would like to emphasize here is what is that key takeaway which you will take out of this 20 minutes, or maybe after 20 minutes, what is that thing you should expect? Number one thing is that how do you actionize the governance of agentic AI? What are the different steps, or what should be the process of doing that? The second thing, now if we just little go back 10 years back, and if we talk about data governance, I'm sure most of us understand data governance. And if we look back 10 years back, databases, data warehouses were there, and they were pretty mature. But was data governance there at that point of time? Maybe yes, but definitely no. And over the period of time, we have seen, because of the regulations, because of the compliances, because of the forced nature of the laws, basically, like say privacy laws, a lot of governance came into picture. Now in today's world, if we look at AI, or the AI summit which happened in Paris few months back, there were completely two different thought processes which came in. One thought process said that AI should be regulated and a compliances should be there, whereas the other thought process clearly said that no, if I put regulations, if I put restrictions, the innovation will go for a toss. These are completely two different directions. Now, let's assume that second thing happens, where actually we are not putting in any regulations right now. Does that mean that the guardrails, we will not put any guardrails in our AI systems? Answer is no. Without guardrails, without any checks, your AI can go wrong, and especially when we are talking about agentic AI. So in today's session, I'll cover in few parts. First is definitely, I'll just talk about evolution of AI, in which I'll just try to make understand what are the risks of agentic AI, and then I'll get into the risks itself. You might have already heard about the risks like say bias or hallucinations in AI, but how those risks actually get amplified or cascades in case of agentic AI, I'll talk about that. Plus with that, of course, you should expect one more thing is agenda. This is agenda. So definitely, how do you actually start your governance of agentic AI, which is a framework, and then finally the action plan. So now, yeah, so a little bit on the evolution. So basically, the first wave of rule-based algorithms and predictive AI ML, single step and simple tasks, forecasting, like finding patterns or classifications or recommendations, they were the key things basically we were doing. Now if we are talking about use cases could be like reducing risks or driving sales. Now if we have to talk about reducing risks, so fraud detection, sensitive data classification, breach detection, or maybe credit risk scoring could be the use cases as part of reducing risk. Whereas if we talk about the driving sales, so some of the use cases are like product recommendation or demand forecasting. Now if you look at the second wave, which was single step or single task, but it was little more complex. Now which was able to reason and converse with humans. Now what could be the use cases, or what are the use cases which we have seen? Help bots, code generation, contract creation, content creation, and so on. If we are talking about driving revenues, generating marketing content, or say new product development, those are the things which we have seen. Now the interesting part comes is the third wave, that is of AI agents. Now here it is not a single step, it's multi-step tasks and more complex. And when I say complexity comes because of the autonomous with minimal human intervention. That's the complexity we bring in. Now, let's little deep dive into the name itself, Agentic AI. As its name suggests, Agentic AI has agency in it. Let's understand what is, let's a little deep dive into that agency word itself. The ability to act and to choose which actions to take. Agency implies autonomy, which is the power to act and make decisions independently. When we extend these concepts to agentic AI, we can say it can act on its own to plan, execute and achieve its own goals, and then it becomes agentic AI. The goals are set by humans, but the agents determine how to fulfill those goals, and that's what is important part. Now, if we look at certain use cases, it can reshape business processes, or say it can reshape your IT and data operations, or maybe governance itself. Now, some of the use cases are like, say, autonomous supply chain management, or say robotic manufacturing, or say portfolio management, or say autonomous investments itself. And I'll talk about autonomous investments and portfolio management, some of the use cases over the next few slides. So if we look at, so let me just deep dive quickly into the risks. And I talked about the risks where you have seen all this risk in some or the other way in AI, the earlier waves of AI. Now I'll talk about or explain a little bit how these risks are getting amplified because of agentic AI. So let's start with, like, while the key characteristics like functionality, adaptability and autonomy, basically these are the key characteristics of agentic AI, and which are more powerful compared to the characteristics of AI and Gen AI basically. And but it also makes it more prone to certain risks compared to the other AIs which we have seen till now. Let's take one by one risk. Like, let's take excessive agency. Agency, I explained what is agency is. So basically excessive agency is it's a result of its autonomous nature, and accesses exceeding than required to perform its actions, which can lead to harmful or say unintended consequences. Example, in case of financial portfolio managing agent, it might buy stock beyond permissible values or make investment outside permissible categories. Similarly, if we look at adversarial attacks, it is more prone to attacks like data poisoning, goal manipulations, memory poisoning. I'll talk about these terminologies in a little bit in next few slides, a little bit more, and what are the capabilities which can take care of these issues. And because of increased attack surface where it has connected to data, external systems, APIs and tools. Now, when I'm talking about external systems, I'll talk about it, that how agentic AI works with external systems. Now, if we have to talk about bias amplification, we all know bias in AI. Now, how this gets amplified? Let's assume a user who holds biased views passes those bias onto an agent, which are subsequently embedded due to memory and personalization features of the system. Additionally, a biased agent within a multi-agent system may pass this bias onto the other agents. Now, typically, if we look at from this perspective, that if agents are working in a fabric and there are multiple agents are there working together, one particular agent, because of its nature of adaptability, it will create its own data, and that particular data could be potentially used by the other agents. And that's where the biases basically can be passed into other agents in form of the real data. For the other agent, it is real data, and that's where is the bias amplification happens. Now, that's where if we have to talk about reward hacking, it is a risk in agentic AI occurs when an AI agent manipulates its reward function to maximize rewards in unintended ways, often bypassing the true goal. For example, an AI tasked with reducing security alerts might suppress legitimate warnings to appear more efficient and leaving vulnerabilities unaddressed. So now, of course, I'll talk about cascading hallucination as well, which I just mentioned about hallucinations. Now, in a multi-agent scenarios, which I just talked about, the self-learning nature of the agents are there. Now, this can cascade and amplify the risk hallucination, leading to unintended and inaccurate decisions. And that's where is the one of the major problems. Now, let me just quickly move on and let's see the same risks basically across the agentic AI architecture. Now, if you look at this particular architecture, there are four parts. There are four white boxes. Let's start with perceive, or rather, let's see the perceive or reasoning, act, and learn and adapt. So these are the four phases basically of any agentic AI architecture. Now, if we look at perceive, AI agents gather and process data from various sources such as sensors, databases, and digital interfaces. This involves extracting meaningful features, recognizing objects, or identifying relevant entities in the environment. There are risks perceived from information that is corrupted, and though these interaction, it is prone to attacks like prompt injections or malware attacks. Now, prompt injection, let me just elaborate a little bit, and in a very simplistic example I'll tell, not in terms of a technology example. Let's assume that this is an event which is going on, and let's think that you don't know anything about, you're not from a data world, you don't understand Databricks, you're completely alien to this entire event, and you are just outside this event venue, and somebody approaches you with a bag of all t-shirts, and you are wondering that what could be this event, and that particular individual asks you that I have certain t-shirts which I am giving free of cost to everybody, and these t-shirts are related to soccer club. So the first thought which comes to your mind is that probably this event might be something related to soccer. The next, you just move ahead, another guy comes and says, and he carries all flags, and he says that, okay, I have certain flags with me, and these flags are of soccer clubs. That ensures basically this entire event is something related to soccer. Now that's called as memory poisoning, or I would say basically the prompt injection is happening where the memory is getting poisoned. So you start with a wrong understanding, or you're getting the wrong data. So that's where perceive, we are calling it as a perceive, we are not calling it as a like ingress. So that's where is the difference of ingressing data and perceiving data. So basically agentic AI starts with perceive, not ingress of data. Now reasoning part. So in reasoning again, let's take LLMs. So a large language model acts as an orchestrator or reasoning engine that understands tasks, generates solutions, and coordinates specialized models or specific functions like content creation or a visual processing, so on. This step uses techniques like RAG to access proprietary data sources and deliver accurate, relevant outputs. However, at this stage, there are also risks like poor data quality or biased data through which it learns. Another issue could be like reward tampering, which is a specific form of specification gaming where a model alters the training process to increase its reward. Since an AI agent's behavior will be strongly influenced by its reward, tampering with them will be it will add unpredictability and make them more difficult to control. Let's take some examples like manufacturing process, or an agent as part of manufacturing process might focus on quantity rather than the quality. Now if we talk about the act, the third phase of this architecture, by integrating with external tools, which I was talking about, how agentic AI behaves when it is interacting with external world. So by integrating with external tools and software via application programming interface, or agentic AI quickly execute tasks based on the plans it has formulated. However, guardrails can be built into AI agents to help ensure they execute tasks correctly. Here there are risks like excessive agency, and excessive agency, I just explained how excessive agency is one of the key risks. When an AI system wields more autonomy, if it gets more autonomy than what it should, it may undertake actions outside its defined scope by human beings. And that's where is the problem. For instance, an enterprise AI integrated into operational systems might initiate unsanctioned changes that disrupt critical business processes. Now comes the last and most important phase of this architecture, which is learn and adapt. So agentic AI continuously improves through feedback loop, which also we call as a data flywheel sometime, where the data generated from its interactions is fed into the system to enhance models. This ability to adapt and become more effective over time offers businesses a very powerful tool for driving better decision making and operational efficiency. This serves a self-learning mechanism which comes with its own risks like hallucination. And I talked about how hallucination also cascades. In the continuous learning process, hallucination risk occurs when an AI incorporates fabricated or inaccurate information into its evolving knowledge base, leading to unreliable outputs. For instance, an AI model might begin to generate baseless conclusions in its decision making after repeatedly processing distorted feedback. Now let's move on to what are the mitigations. Now we have seen the risks. Now let's see the mitigation. Having discussed upon the risks, each stage involves, let's now understand what are the guardrails or the governance tenets which are relevant to each stage, all 4 stages, as well as the entire agentic AI setup. Starting from very first touch point, perceive, there are several guardrails like rate limitation, access control, sandboxing. Let's take an example of sandboxing, which will help prevent data contamination and shall reduce risk like data poisoning. Next in line, planning or the reasoning stage, where in agentic AI thinks to provide outcomes as expected, it needs to think clearly, and that can be done, and when the data being consumed is of good quality, unbiased and protected as well. Taking an example of one of the measures like grounding AI, it ensures that outputs are anchored to verifiable real world information, reducing the risk of fabricated or hallucinated responses. For example, a legal advisory system cross-references authoritative case laws, provides factually sound and legal interpretations. Moving to next stage, which is ACT, which undeniably carries extreme significance due to being closest to consumption. It becomes even more important to establish guardrails to ensure that output is always trustworthy, ethical and compliant. There are many guardrails which are needed to ensure an expected output like human in the loop, guarding agent, or robust access controls, or maybe monitoring. Let's take an example of human in the loop itself. Before finalizing a high value fund transfer, I talked about portfolio management, in which an AI system triggers a human review to verify the transaction's legitimacy. Another example could be establishing robust access controls. These access controls restrict interaction with the AI system to authorized users only, preventing unauthorized commands or modifications. Now, next comes what is often neglected, the fuel for agentic AI, which is learn and adapt. This is a continuous process by which agentic AI systems learn not only from the data they perceive and act, but upon based on feedback received as well. It becomes important to safeguard this from poisoning or hallucinations, as it was being shown as part of the risks. Now, continuous content validation is an example. In this, the learn and adapt stage, this guardrail involves the ongoing verification of AI generated content, which is against predefined standards to catch and correct inaccuracies. Now, we know that guardrails are required. However, how do we know if we need all these solutions or only these solutions are sufficient? How do we decide the scenarios, thresholds in which human interventions is required for any use case? What are the factors which could help in deciding this? Answer is simple, no. Now let's move on to, I'll just quickly move on to the framework itself. So if you look at the framework, so basically this is a comprehensive framework which is typically we have used against 5 principles: trust, ethics, privacy, security and compliance. Now if you look at this 5 principles, this 5 principles basically cuts across 3 different layers: data, models and its usage. And most importantly, if we look at, for every principle there are certain characteristics are there which are like explainable, accurate, and say explainable. If I have to talk about explainable, if I have to create the trust, of course the most important thing is am I able to explain the any consequences or any actions which are being taken. And that's where basically type of lineages come or traceability comes, like your data lineage or model lineage. And that's where basically this entire governance or the governance architecture or governance framework comes in picture. I'll quickly move on to action in plan. So this is the action in plan. We shall enable our clients with governance of their AI ecosystem based on 3-phased pilot action plan, serving as the foundation to scaling data and AI and their governance. This plan spans from very establishment of guidance in form of defining vision, mission, AI governance, office policies to build the framework which encapsulates designing and defining processes for use cases, onboarding, prioritization, risk categorization, and mitigation. Of course, managing change, approval, and review is part of this process. This is followed by actionizing the governance, first as a pilot or an MVP, then on scale. So here I am ending. So basically, this is the last slide, action. Now on the framework, this is the slide, and on action, definitely there are more details are there. We have limited time. You can come to the booth of Infosys. I'll be there, my team will be there to help you understand the framework and how to actionize it. We have solutions as well with respect to AI governance, where we can show you the solutions, how these solutions work. And definitely, if you are working on Databricks, definitely these solutions are aligned to Databricks and we can help you. And we understand that as part of Databricks, there will be a lot of agents over the period of time you will be building. And if I have to talk about governance by design, as part of the agent building design, you can put governance. Thank you. If you have any questions, you can ask me.